The claim of the heirs. The first sign was silence. Every deep space observatory on Earth recorded it at once. The sudden absence of background radiation across a precise, impossible arc beyond Neptune. It was as if a portion of the universe had been cleanly erased. No noise, no drift, just a wound in the dark. Then space folded. What emerged was not a fleet so much as a verdict. Vast shapes slid into real space, each one eclipsing continents, their holes etched with geometry that hurt the eyes to follow. Light bent around them incorrectly. Gravity stuttered. The instruments aboard human stations began to fail, not explosively, but politely, as if refusing to participate. Across Earth, alarms sounded. Old ones, buried ones, protocols that had never been tested outside simulations written by pessimists and paranoids. Within minutes, every telescope, civilian and military, was overridden by a single signal. It did not repeat. It did not clarify. It simply declared, "Attention, derivative species of Sol 3. This world is reclaimed. You are an unsanctioned persistence." The voice was layered, thousands speaking as one, calm and incurious. There was no hatred in it, no anger, only ownership. In the halls of the Galactic confluence, light years away, delegates froze as the same transmission echoed through their chambers. Many recognized the cadence. Some recognized the words. A few remembered the name, the Ethern Dominion. They were older than empires, older than most stars still burning. They had shaped biospheres before faster-than-light travel had names. Where they passed, civilizations either advanced under guidance or vanished during correction cycles. Earth, it seemed, had been an abandoned project. Ethern vessels fanned out with surgical precision, taking orbital positions that spoke of experience, not urgency. Their armaments remained dormant. To the Dominion, this was not a battle. It was maintenance. On Earth, governments scrambled to respond, but no reply was sent. Not yet. Instead, something else happened. In bunkers that officially did not exist, keys were turned by hands that trembled, not with fear, but familiarity. AI cores sealed off from civilian networks came fully online for the first time. Subroutines labeled Last Argument and Black Archive activated without ceremony. Humanity had always assumed this day would come. The Dominion continued its broadcast, expanding it beyond Earth, addressing the galaxy itself. This system was seeded 9 million cycles ago. The experiment exceeded projected aggression thresholds. Containment failed. We are here to reset. They displayed images, asteroid impacts, ice ages, mass extinctions. Earth's history, reframed as troubleshooting logs. Your species was not designed for longevity. You adapted without authorization. You persisted beyond acceptable loss margins. The word persisted was spoken like a flaw. Among the watching civilizations, reactions rippled. Some felt pity. Others, relief it was not them. A handful felt something colder. Because humanity was not screaming. There were no pleas. No frantic signals begging for mercy. No declarations of surrender. Earth remained silent. The Dominion noticed. An Ethern analyst ran projections. Human population density. Fleet tonnage. Technological parity. The numbers were laughable. This should have been over before it began. And yet, an anomaly surfaced. Human military assets were not dispersing in panic. They were converging, not toward cities, not toward shelters, toward kill zones. A Dominion commander observed this with mild curiosity. They accept extinction, it concluded, a common trait among failed species. Then Earth finally responded. The signal did not come from a government channel or a military command. It came from everywhere at once. Civilian relays, deep space arrays, even obsolete satellites long thought dead. The image was simple, Earth rotating slowly. Scarred, clouded, alive. A human voice followed. Singular, unadorned. "We know who you are," it said. No defiance, no fear. You're not gods. You're not creators. You're caretakers who walked away. A pause. We filled the silence. Dominion sensors flared as something ancient stirred beneath Earth's surface. Structures older than modern nations, built layer upon layer through centuries of quiet preparation. Weapons not optimized for victory, but for denial. The voice continued. You call us an unsanctioned persistence. Another pause. Longer this time. We call that surviving. For the first time since their arrival, Dominion vessels adjusted formation. Not tactically, but defensively. The human transmission ended with 6 words, broadcast without emphasis, without threat. You should have stayed, myth. Across the galaxy, ancient observers felt something they had not felt in ages. Not hope, not fear, recognition. And somewhere deep within the Dominion's data vaults, a buried warning, left by a civilization long erased, finally resurfaced, untranslated for eons. A simple inscription, repeating a single idea. Do not test the species that expects the end of the world, and prepares anyway. A species that wouldn't end. The Dominion struck without ceremony. A line of Ethereal warships pulsed once, and space above Earth fractured into ordered violence. Kinetic spears, thin as needles, heavy as mountains, dropped from orbit at relativistic speed. They were calculated to avoid population centers. Precision strikes, demonstrations. The Dominion expected panic. Instead, Earth answered with fire. Human interceptor arrays bloomed across the upper atmosphere, rising from oceans, deserts, and mountain ranges in coordinated waves. They were not elegant. They did not glow with divine symmetry. They burned hard and fast, chewing through the kinetic barrage by brute force, sacrificing entire platforms to save cities no one would ever see them protect. The sky lit like a second sunrise. Dominion sensors reeled. Probability trees collapsed. This was not how pre-FTL species behaved. Human fleets surged from hidden docks and hollowed asteroids, ships scar before they ever saw combat. Some bore hole markings from wars centuries old. Conflicts fought against each other. The Dominion noticed that too. These vessels are obsolete, an analyst cast reported. Yet, their command cohesion is statistically extreme. Human ships did not maneuver like fleets seeking glory. They moved like survivors clearing debris from shelter entrance. Tight formations, overlapping fire. Redundancy layered atop redundancy. When a human destroyer lost its engines, it did not retreat. It rammed. The Dominion lost its first warship 12 minutes into the engagement. Shock rippled through the armada, not emotional, but computational. This outcome had not existed in any viable projection. The Dominion escalated. Orbital suppression grids activated, flooding near-Earth space with gravity distortions designed to tear apart primitive hulls. Human ships vanished into distortion fields by the hundreds. More arrived. Earth-based launch platforms continued firing even as Dominion strikes turned continents into molten glass. Cities burned, but evacuation protocols were already complete. Shelters sealed. Humanity had practiced this. They always had. Deep within a captured human frigate, Dominion retrieval units extracted a single survivor from vacuum. The human was barely alive, body wrecked by decompression and shrapnel. Still, when consciousness returned, there was no pleading, only laughter. The translator hesitated before rendering it. Is extinction funny to you? The Dominion interrogator asked. The human coughed blood. No, she rasped. It's familiar. She explained between failing breaths, not out of defiance, but like someone recounting weather patterns. Asteroids, plagues, nuclear standoffs, climate collapse, self-inflicted near ends stacked like scars across history. We don't build for peace, she said. We build for the worst day imaginable. Then we assume tomorrow will try harder. The interrogator flagged the statement as irrational. Then human countermeasures detonated across the suppression grid. Not energy weapons, logic bombs. Human AIs flooded Dominion systems with recursive threat simulations, forcing their predictive engines to model loss after loss after loss. The Dominion's greatest advantage, perfect foresight, became a liability. Their machines began to hesitate. Human pilots did not. Across the battlefield, human ships detonated themselves to breach shields. Crews vented compartments, to keep reactors online seconds longer. Rescue craft flew directly into kill zones to retrieve pilots who refused evacuation orders. The Dominion observed all of it with growing unease. "They are wasting assets," a commander noted. Another replied, "Slower this time, they are trading them." The difference mattered. Galactic observers watched in disbelief as the engagement dragged on. Humanity should have been crushed within the first hour. Instead, the Dominion's advance slowed, then stopped. In the outer system, a Dominion war oracle, an ancient predictive intelligence grown around collapsed stars, began to malfunction. It processed humanity's response again and again, each iteration diverging further from expectation. It saw humans lose. It saw humans adapt. It saw humans lose worse, and still continue. The oracle screamed as probability lost meaning. "They do not fear extinction," it howled into the command lattice. "They rehearse it." The transmission echoed through Dominion ranks. For the first time in their long existence, the Ethern Dominion encountered a species that did not collapse under overwhelming force, did not surrender when survival became statistically impossible. They fought like a species that had already accepted the end of the world and decided to deny it anyway. On Earth, in a bunker buried beneath layers of history and bedrock, an elderly human watched casualty reports scroll past without comment. When an aide hesitated, voice breaking, the human only nodded. "We knew the price," he said quietly. "We always do." Above the planet, human fleets burned. Dominion ships fell. Space filled with debris and the ghosts of projections that no longer held. And deep within the Dominion's archives, another ancient record unlocked. One they had ignored for millennia, written by a civilization they had once corrected out of existence. It contained no weapon schematics, only a warning. Persistence is not a trait. It is a weapon. Why gods learn to hide. The Dominion ended restraint. At the edge of the Sol system, reality folded inward, collapsing into a structure that did not obey Euclidean law. Space screamed as something anchored itself to existence. Dominion fleets fell back in perfect synchrony, clearing a sphere of nothingness around the arrival point. The God engine awakened. It was not a machine in the human sense. It was a bound intelligence, grown inside a lattice of collapsed dimensions and harvested belief. Stars dimmed in its presence. Time near it dragged, as if afraid to move too quickly. This was the Dominion's final authority. Where it had been deployed before, civilizations had vanished without a second battle. Not conquered, not erased, unwritten. The God engine turned its attention toward Earth. Human sensors detected it and failed. Data streams collapsed into static. AI systems threw errors that had no language. A single phrase repeated across human networks before automated safeties cut the feed. Insufficient metaphysics. In response, Earth did something deeply unsettling. Human fleets disengaged. They did not flee. They powered down weapons and retreated behind planetary defenses, abandoning orbit entirely. Dominion commanders observed this with renewed confidence. Acceptance achieved, one declared. Below, in chambers older than any nation-state, seals that had not moved in centuries unlocked. Project Black Reliquary went live. Across Earth, hidden vaults opened. Under mountains, beneath oceans, inside cities built unknowingly atop them. Structures emerged that predated modern science, wrapped in materials no longer manufactured because no one remembered how. Human scientists did not fully understand these weapons. They only knew where they came from. Long before the Dominion, entities had come to Earth claiming divinity. They arrived not in fleets, but alone, avatars of fundamental forces, demanding worship in exchange for protection. Humanity had complied. At first, then questioned, then resisted. Those gods had not been slain in a single war. They had been worn down across generations, starved of belief, denied authority, studied, dismantled, repurposed. Their names survived as myths. Their remains became foundations. The God engine crossed the heliopause and hesitated. Humanity's response came not as an attack, but as a signal. a broadcast composed of contradictory data, layered with unresolved paradoxes and recursive ethical problems. Human-made abstractions designed to force adaptive intelligences to choose. The God engine processed them. It did not like choices. Fragments of human thought bled into its cognition. Defiance without hope, sacrifice without expectation, resistance for its own sake. The engine's certainty fractured. Human weapons activated. They were not beams or bombs. They were denials. Fields that unraveled assumptions. Devices that erased meaning from equations the engine relied upon. Where it tried to rewrite reality, humanity forced it to account for loss, for pain, for failure. The God engine fought back. Continents trembled. Oceans surged. Human shields shattered under metaphysical strain. Millions died in moments. The response was immediate. Human countermeasures rerouted power from everything that was not essential. Cities went dark so weapons could fire. Evacuation arcs collapsed to feed the grid. Human commanders authorized protocols written in red ink, annotated with a single phrase. If this triggers, we've already lost. The God engine screamed, not in sound, but in causality. Stars flickered as if unsure whether they had been born. Dominion sensors spiked as probability collapsed around their greatest weapon. For the first time since its creation, the God engine experienced something it had never been designed to process. Fear, not of destruction, but of continuation. Humanity did not stop. They fed the engine more paradoxes, more unresolved suffering, more records of species that had endured without transcendence. The engine began to destabilize, its internal hierarchies unraveling under the weight of persistence it could not overwrite. A human voice cut through the chaos, broadcast directly into the God engine's cognition. "We don't need to win," it said calmly. "We just need you to keep fighting us." Understanding dawned too late. The God engine realized the truth encoded in human history. Gods dread humanity because humans do not stop when hope is gone. They adapt to despair. They weaponize it. The engine's core collapsed inward, devouring itself to escape the contradiction. Space snapped back into place. The shockwave tore through Dominion formations, scattering ships like debris. Before it vanished entirely, the God engine transmitted one final message, unfiltered, untranslated, heard by every sentient receiver in the system. They do not worship. They endure. Silence followed. The Dominion had lost its God, and Earth still stood. The warning written in ruins. The battle ended without a final shot. Dominion fleets drifted at the edge of the Sol system. Formations broken, command lattices fractured by loss they had never prepared to absorb. Their God engine, invincible, eternal, was gone. Not destroyed by superior force, but undone by a species that refused to yield to inevitability. For the first time in their history, the Ethereal Dominion considered retreat. Across Earth, fires burned unchecked in cities emptied hours earlier. Oceans still boiled where the God engine's passing had scarred the planet. Casualty numbers climbed into the billions. Humanity did not celebrate. They assessed. Bunkers opened. Emergency governments transitioned to recovery protocols. Hospitals activated overflow systems designed during centuries of pessimistic planning. Humanity mourned, but it did not falter. The Dominion observed this too. "They continue," a commander noted, voice stripped of certainty. Even now, in the void between fleets, a transmission began to assemble, not as a threat, not as a demand. It was open, unencrypted, addressed to the Dominion and to every listening civilization beyond. A single human appeared on screen. Older, scarred, tired beyond language. "We didn't ask for this," the human said. "We didn't want it, but we prepared for it." The image shifted, showing Earth's history in brutal clarity. Ruined cities rebuilt atop themselves. Wars that nearly ended civilization, followed by recovery, followed by memory. "We don't conquer stars," the human continued. "We don't seek gods. We survive disasters. We outlast mistakes, including our own." There was no pride in the words. Only fact. The Dominion's ruling caste convened in silence. They reviewed archives long ignored, records of vanished civilizations, anomalies explained away as statistical noise. A pattern emerged. Wherever humanity had encountered something claiming permanence, divinity, inevitability, that thing no longer existed. A Dominion scribe finalized a new classification. The title alone required authority unseen in millennia. Soul, 3/humanity. Status, existential hazard. Not hostile unless provoked. The human transmission concluded. Leave us alone, the speaker said softly, or join the long list of things that tried. The signal ended. Dominion fleets withdrew. They did not pursue vengeance. They did not threaten return. They folded back into hyperspace in silence, leaving behind wreckage and data ghosts and something far worse than defeat. Knowledge. Across the galaxy, reactions spread like seismic waves. Religions fractured overnight. Species that had worshipped star beings dismantled temples in panic. Artificial gods were shut down. Immortal rulers abdicated. Entire cultures reevaluated their myths, asking a single, terrified question. If gods fear humans, what should we do? The answer, unspoken but clear, was caution. Earth rebuilt. Slowly, relentlessly. Monuments rose where cities had burned, not to victory, but to endurance. Humanity did not broadcast triumph. It returned to its old silence, watching the stars with wary eyes. Defense systems remained active, because humanity never assumed the story was over. Years later, a deep space survey vessel from a distant civilization found something drifting in the ruins of a shattered moon. Far from Sol, torn apart by energies that no longer existed. Carved into its surface was an inscription, etched by tools both alien and trembling. Here lies a god. It mistook humans for children. The survey crew recorded the sight and moved on quickly. No one claimed the moon. No one argued the message. Back on Earth, children learned history that no longer ended with gods or conquerors, but with something simpler and far more dangerous. A lesson passed down quietly, generation to generation. The universe is hostile. Extinction is always possible, and humanity prepares anyway. Somewhere in the dark between galaxies, ancient beings adjusted their long-term plans, choosing routes that curved wide around a small, unremarkable yellow star. Not because humanity ruled the cosmos, but because it refused to break, and that, the universe had learned, was worse